Today is December 2021. Hope you're well. A little while back, we did a series entitled Living One's Truth. And we're going to follow that up right now because there's another one that needs to be made, a final one that needs to be made. And it's been kind of coming together over time as far as the content of this one through experiences, of course, per usual, or per normally. And so we're just going to get to it. I hope you're well. By the way, if we did not say that at the outset. So there seems to come a point, and let's preface this all by saying, this is just according to the speaker's own experience here. Okay, so we're not saying whatever is spoken into this device is true across the board for everyone. It's just my own experience. So there seems to come a point where a lot of the non-essentials have fallen away. And it just, and that's kind of described in the previous recordings of this title. It's not a thing that you sit out doing, okay, here's my checklist of all the things that have to go. It's a natural, organic progression when we are moving into our trueness, so to speak. And so, as we started to say, so there comes a point where we realize that as long as we are in this place, that process remains. Because once most of or all of the outer stuff has fallen away, then comes the really heavy duty, down to it, hard work of releasing and letting go the things that we previously didn't even realize were still waiting or weighing on us, or pulling down, and things that, and we've mentioned some of this in the previous recordings, but we'll just say it again. Where we're moving into is brand spanking new. And none of the fear-based anything can exist there. It will not. And as long as those are elements of what we are holding on to, really unconsciously at this point now, really deeply ingrained stuff, as long as those even particles still remain, it's You know, it can't. And those things are as difficult as it may have been or seemed, letting go of the outer stuff. That was just a preparation. That was just, we've said it before that probably most people would think, okay, the longer that I've been on this path, or whatever you want to call this, and the so-called farther that I get, or however you want to call that, the easier it's going to get. But it's not that way, because it's like, we didn't understand when we were fully enmeshed in this place how much weight we were carrying. We weren't even perceiving it. It just had become our norm. But once you get to a certain point of releasing that, then the weight, whatever is remaining, you are feeling the weight of it now. It's not the norm anymore. So even though it might seem like, okay, yeah, but you just said it was particles and little bits and elements, that was all that was left. It doesn't matter, because for some reason, because developing our new muscles is becoming more regular for us, the newness, the feel of what the newness is, we're learning on some level, not consciously necessarily, but we are learning or understanding what that will be, to the best that we can, the best way that we can understand it. And it's like a huge part of us now is light. Not light like shining light, but light versus heavy is light. We're light. And so any weight is going to be felt. And so it feels heavy because of that. So even though, if that makes sense, hopefully that makes sense. And again, we want to emphasize that this is just the experience of the speaker right now. This is not necessarily across the board for every person. And, the other thing that we wanted to say now is there's only so much more that we can really speak on what the process will be from this point forward, except for what we have just said. It's very, very, very individualized now. Very individualized. Is there such a thing? It's our own thing now. It's almost like there is no path laid out at this point before us, because we're going to take steps, just metaphorically, we're going to be moving, taking steps forward, however you want to imagine that. But as we are moving forward, that path is being made in that. We are making the path. And so no one is going to be able to say, okay, this is that, and that is this, and this is what's going to happen, this is what's not going to happen, and this is what you're going to see, and this is what... Nobody's going to know that for you. You're not even going to know it for yourself, because it's living in the present. Now it is... we're also realizing that this place, the old, is about living in the past, so to speak, or living in the future, so to speak, not living in the present at all. And so it's the way of life that we had grown accustomed to or used to was always at its core either in the past or in the future. It was the fuel that drove us in our previous way of existing was, okay, this happened and that happened. Okay, so blah, 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 blah. You're making calculations in your brain how to do this and that and the other thing now because of your memories of the past. Or you're projecting into the future somehow in your imagination up to what outcomes might be if you again you're making calculations based on what the future may be, but we and that's how we lived in this place. But living in the present means there's not going to be any of that now. It feels very floaty, and it's not something that most people like. That feeling of this pseudo security. But we come to realize that all of those things that we were doing in our imagination to make ourselves feel kind of secure about how we moved in this place, they were just stuff we did in our minds to try to manage with the different, situations that were presenting themselves at the time, you see. But this is so brand new for each and every person that, something that we had talked about in the previous recordings was that aloneness. However, another thing is we get to a point where we understand that we're not alone, and the speaker cannot explain what that means at all. That's going to be a discovery for each and every individual who's moving in a certain way to discover. That's going to be for each person on their own to understand what that means for themselves. So there are a few other things, and maybe there'll be a part 2 to this concluding segment of living one's truth. But those are just some things that we wanted to say. Maybe in the next one, what we'll do is we'll kind of give a few examples, because we said this is going to be the hardest part of all. So we'll explain, maybe give some kind of examples of what that might look like. Maybe just suffice it to say now that a lot of the stuff that has been deeply, 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 deeply ingrained in us, maybe even in our genetic makeup, those things, when those things present, you really have to sit down and be with it for a little bit. And we'll explain what those things might look like. Because, we're just going to stop it here. But hopefully what we've touched on has been something relatable to someone out there. And we do kind of on this channel, we talk about different ways of thinking or not thinking. We've done a few just about, what thoughts are. And at this point in my journey, as they say, this is where I am. And so, again, it's just about sharing. And again, if it resonates with someone out there, then that's what this is all about. So anyway, we want to wish you much love now. Bye.